Committee. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act of 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council public policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Okay, do we have any apologies, substitutions, or declarations of interest?
Convener, there are no apologies or substitutions. So
Okay.
move to roll call. Can the following councillors please indicate if they're present at the meeting? Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
In chamber.
Councillor Clockerty.
In chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Jackson.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCabe.
Present in chamber.
Councillor McCormick.
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson.
Chambers.
Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Yes, sorry.
Item 1314, the reference is made to Riverbank Homes, that reports. With objective test, it's simply a reference because I don't believe it is substantial.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Sorry. Welcome.
Thanks, Convener. So for agenda item 12, on the board that one of the organisations that was successful in the employability contract, but it's a paper for noting. So I left the meeting last time when the decision was made. This is just for people to know some good stay.
Similar to Councillor Brooks, I'm a member of the Board of Riverbank Homes. I note the respect to 13 and 14, but again, applying the objective test, I don't think my interest is so substantial to have me to leave the room.
Okay.
And certainly for myself, 12 as a member of the trust board as well.
Okay. Anyone else online? No? Okay, thank you very much. So item number 2 is the Environment Regeneration Revenue Budget Update. Matt, will you take us through this?
Thank you, Convener. Yes. Members aware this is a standard revenue budget report. We're showing currently £169,000 over. It's a slight 9,000 increase from last period. I would remind members, as I always do though, that this does include a £236,000 overspend due to parking, part of which is going through as a budget pressure and won't be an issue going forward. So without that, the committee would actually be in a very small underspend. Just remind members, we are in the middle of the year in process at the moment, so while this isn't actually the final outturn report, figures should be fairly close. We're not seeing anything unusual in the outturn, so it should be fairly close. An outturn will be reported to Policy and Resources in August, and also to the first sitting of this committee after the recess. Paragraph 3.6 details some reallocation of our Shared Prosperity Fund towards business support and to a pilot to tackle economic activity, and the members are asked to sort of approve that. I don't intend to go through the details of the overs and unders in there. I can take questions obviously, but I would just remind members that are asked to note the position in the report, note the outturn will come back after the summer recess, and also to approve the SPF reallocations. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, Matt, thank you. Neil, do you want to come over?
Thank you. So just a few words on paragraph 3.6 of the Shared Prosperity Fund programme. In the white paper, it's asking an explanation set out for a special one-off intervention for support for West Black Wall Street businesses at the current time. The proposal is that that's a one-off intervention given the availability to redirect funding and recognising that there are no other channels. There's recognition of a wider need to support businesses in location for a range of factors, including the ongoing works, but things like cost of living crisis as well. In terms of the detail of that at the moment, in anticipation of potential approval, officers have been taking some work to develop the conditions of the funding. and that's just the ability to act and move fast if there's an approval today. I have to take any questions, but as I say, that's working through the detail at the moment. And probably just also note that the Town Centre Regeneration Forum met yesterday, and some of us in the room were in attendance at that. And that had, as it usually does, a wide range of representations, including businesses in attendance. And there was a sort of echoing of the pressures faced by businesses and the need for support, but also recognition that the prolonged works in phase 1 will be beneficial and have an overall positive impact when complete. So I just wanted to highlight that in terms of paragraph 3.6. And that's to take any further questions on that.
Okay, no, thank you. Jim?
Yeah, thanks, convener. Can I firstly obviously welcome the paper, and especially 3.6 for those of us who look after Greenock Town Centre, and especially West Blackhall Street. It's very welcome, and we know you could put another 0 at the end of that, you know, and you would still be able to spend also. We know that, but I think the use of this funding, because we know how skint the council is overall, so I think the use of this funding in order to do that is very well, and I think it shows that officers have been listening to both elected members and to business owners in order to do this. And Neil, thanks for outlining the hitting the ground running with regard to how the application going down. My only plea is make it as simple as possible and get the money out. Once we agree this, I hope we will do, get the money out as quickly as we can to them as well. I think that'd be very much appreciated. But all in all, I know we'll speak about West Blackhall Street probably later in the agenda, but this is certainly a positive move, and it shows that both council officers have been listening to us, and I think it'll be very well received by the business owners in West Blackhall Street.
Okay, thanks, Jim. No?
Yeah, I associate myself with positive comments. First of all, regarding the welcome from the shopkeepers and traders on West Blackhall Street. Just to clarify, at one point, part of the narrative given was based on the cost of living crisis and the works within West Blackhall Street. I would be uncomfortable that we're actually tying in cost of living crisis, because then every trader in Inverclyde could try and knock our door or try and push us. Is this 100,000 specifically due to the disruption caused by the obviously necessary? So we have to break the egg to make the omelette, and we can obviously see the benefits of West Blackhall Street over the long term. But just to clarify, can we withdraw today's cost of living, and this £100,000 programme that hopefully we're doing that will go through is based on the disruption due to the current works.
Rob, come on.
Yeah, just to clarify that point, it's not a specific intervention related specifically to the works, it's a wider recognition of a cumulative range of pressures that are faced by businesses in this location. And part of that is related to the phase 1, but we can't attribute fully the impact on businesses at the moment to any particular cost, so it's not specifically in relation to that, the works.
Okay, no, without agree with the officer, and I would disagree, but can I just tease out, so why can we not assign it all? Is there a legal context? Are we opening the door for others? What is the officer's explanation or understanding of why this isn't based on the current works?
Yeah, again, through you, convener. It's been recognition of the wider pressures that are coming forward, and has been mentioned already through various sources. And listening to that and understanding the pressures are faced, and that was sort of played out in the Regeneration Forum yesterday. And there are a range of pressures that are affecting businesses, not only the works, and so it's a package recognising the cumulative impact of pressures at the moment. So again, it's to clarify, not specifically about one particular cause.
Okay. Anyone else?
Okay.
No. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I welcome this, and I think it's a good move to be shown to support businesses at this time. But I think it would be useful in terms of the wider SDF programme. Of the report talks about a future ENR committee. I'd like to see that to the next ENR committee. And obviously, I mean, I appreciate there have been challenges in terms of the multiply programme, and I suppose we need, the government probably needs to learn lessons about that in the future as well.
Okay. Right. John?
Thank you, Convener. Just moving away from the Greenock Town Centre, I noticed there that on Appendix 3, it's page 7 of the hard copy under Property Services, we have the physical assets, the pontoon property costs. Now, the pontoon in reference, is that the pontoon that's in the East India Harbour? If that is the case, I know that we do have to pay the Crown Estate for the use of the seabed for the lease. There is also the electricity that's been used by the boat owners who use the pontoon, and also that Marine had the contract to administer the pontoon on behalf of the council. Now, we do have a figure there of 20k, but could I ask, what income is the council receiving from this venture by the council?
Very convener, there's very little income coming in, and that's to suit a combination of the fact that it's an honesty box situation that relies on people, actually put money in that box when they're using it, because the operator who's looking after it and making sure it's safe isn't there 24 hours a day to be able to take that income. We still have issues with vessels mooring there permanently, and we're having difficulty legally addressing that and moving them on, so that there is a limited amount of berthing space for anybody who does come in. And we also have issues with those vessels using electricity whilst they're there as well. So there's a whole host of issues with this. It isn't making money, it's costing money, and there isn't an actual budget for this within physical assets, which is a recurring issue. There's never been a budget for it. I think there was an intention that it would break even, but that's not been the case, even from its very first days.
Okay, that's very nice, thank you. The only thing, if I just back in a supplementary, in the past, we did have a paper that was presented, and I just wonder if it's possible if we could maybe have an update from that paper.
I'm not familiar with the paper like you mentioned, but if you can provide a copy, then I can have a look at it. And look
I can do, yeah.
Okay, we agree with the recommendations?
So sorry.
Sorry.
Just a supplementary to that point, I suppose it is a small matter, it is 20,000, but we have, as we all know, we have budget constraints, and I suppose it's something we can't let continue, because I suppose there is an asset there that we could effectively sell and realise and not have the ongoing £20,000. So I think it's an asset I'd love to see in Inverclyde and in Dustin Greenup. But I think the concern is that it's effectively been abused by people rather than being used. And I suppose, really, can we continue on doing that? And I suppose if there is a paper that comes on, I think we do need to consider it and do like to see how we can actually ensure that it does wash its face. Because I think it's a great thing to have, but at the same time, it's like everything else. If you use it, if you pay the appropriate charge, it's a much better facility for everyone.
Okay, can we fix the recommendations? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, item number 3 is the capital programme 24 to 28 progress report. Eddie, take this us.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. There's quite a lot in the report with multiple projects at various stages. Details in there, and many of these projects have progressed further since the report was drafted. In terms of the overall expenditure against the original 2023-24 projection, the committee is reporting advancement of just over £1.5 million, or 0.6%, subject to completion of the year-end accounting process. And I won't go through any of the projects in detail. I'm just asking the committee approve the recommendations, and myself and the other officers present to contribute to the report. Applicants very specific questions on any of the individual projects.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. Good to see some other projects still ongoing. Questions for Eddie?
Yeah, few questions. First one, all the time. 3.4 Dunroyd Road. It'd be useful to get an update on terms of timescales, like timescales and things like that project forward. And the next two questions are around a project that's dropped off the report, which is Kilcombe car parks that are designed just to understand where we are with the, I mean, there's no financial provision at this point in time, but we did have in previous versions of this report an update on where we were with the design of the potential new car park, so it'd be useful to know that. And there's also an outstanding remit to this committee to look at pedestrian safety in St James's Terrace in Kilcombe. You'll recall, that should agreed by the committee, we wouldn't put in a pedestrian crossing, but it was also agreed officers would look at what other options there were for improving pedestrian safety at St James's Terrace and Kilmarnock. So it would be useful to know where officers are with that particular issue as well.
Yeah, I'll try. We're seeing the ability to help us on. In terms of the North Road, we're still at early stages and we're still in discussions with the landowner. We have instructed recently site investigation contractors, and we're looking to mark out the road on the land just to get clarity of what the route is going to take and any issues that may present. We don't have programmes yet, so we need to continue this kind of current level of investigation, get the SI work behind that, inform the development of the detailed design. So once we've got that moving, we'll be able to get an idea of a programme on it, but it is still dependent on the discussions with the landowner as well. In terms of the Kilmarnock car park, I understand that the investigation around the ownership position has only recently been clarified. And I don't think the officers have had a chance to take forward the detailed design any further, and that's simply linked to resource and the fact that we don't have a budget for this. It's probably being funded through feasibility at the moment. So so that's something we can look at again, but you have recognised already that there isn't a budget currently for that one. In terms of the outstanding name at St James Terrace, it's not one I'm familiar with, and I don't know if Stephen can add anything to that, but if we can't, then we can certainly take that away and come back and with an update and where we are with that and when it might come back. Stephen?
Thank you, Convener. I do apologise, I've got IT issues today as well, so no, I've got no further updates to any of the points that was made. Councillor McCabe, I'm aware that we had talked about in previous meetings about St James's Terrace. I don't believe we've made much progress in that. I would need to get a full update of the fellow officers and come back to you directly, Councillor, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's right, thank you.
Okay, so Glenn.
Thanks very much, Convener. First, 3.34. Can identify thanks for that fantastic outcome there. We closed obviously the lane to do urgent repairs, I believe it was, and the efficiency of what happened there, I think was extraordinary. And when the scaffolding and the roadworks was removed, I know that from a social point of view, the centre maybe is limited, but nevertheless we have an appropriate building there, properly clad, it fits. So I just thank officers for that intervention in our centre for homeless individuals. Could I refer to 3.5 and take us back to Westwood Hall Street? The stance of decision to develop Westwood Hall Street has been taken, and we all know the reasons that we wanted to improve the facility of the offer to the town centre, to ensure that we could encourage retail and grow retail, which I think was objectives. And I think this committee made an appropriate decision to obviously make that. And that was August 2023, I believe the stance of decision was actually made. Nevertheless, we all understood the difficulties that a high street would have, or a main street would have, when the roadworks started. And no matter what consultation, or the level of consultation we would have with owners and retailers and residents who live in the street, we have had a lot of challenges as ward councillor. I've certainly had the biggest challenge to speak to constituents and retailers. And nevertheless, where we are, I think we can see this phase one is the right thing to do, and the pain, we've already just spent 100,000. So the pain of that, we want to see a proper return, and hopefully that will happen. There's obviously a lot of questions on the work, but I'm not going to make that just now. That would be if the contract is finished, for the council to make that. The challenge I have from constituents and from retailers is phase two. What we intend to do, if my understanding is correct from yesterday's meeting of the Green Town Centre Regeneration, is if the money becomes available, and that's the reason it went into two phases, we're going to conclude phase one, we're going to return the the street back to the pedestrians, retailers and to constituents, and then we're going to start again from Westport Hall Street. We're going to lift the cobbles, relay the road, if that's the correct word, or the carriageway, I think would be a better word, and put in cycle lane. Stage 2 was always a negative from my perspective, but nevertheless, I can understand why it was the right thing to do. Is there an opportunity now for us to take pause? We see the damage, the disaster that is caused to our constituents through stage 1, and we can see the benefits that will come. So sometimes the gain is worth doing the pain. But constituents and retailers do not see any gain on stage 2 or phase 2. Sorry, I think also I call it phase 2. They do not see the value of putting the phase 2 through, for the disruptions, for road TROs, for the roads to be closed, and for the tiles, for the cobbles to be lifted and put back down. The value to the retailer is not seen by the retailer nor the constituents. So as we are 6 months from that decision, I would move, in fact, convener, that we pause phase 2. The money isn't yet available, so we can't actually go ahead with it. That's the information I have in the information papers. That we pause phase 2 to have a proper reflection on the damage that has caused to retail. Is 100,000 enough? What has happened? Will we lose shops? I'm aware that 3 shops are going to close as a result of phase 1. And if a pause could be taken now, and at a later date, this committee could reinstate phase 2 if it should, if it deemed appropriate. So I'll move, convener, that this committee pauses phase 2 and a paper comes back to the committee to understand the reality of the damage that's been done through phase 1.
Thank you. Somebody to second that motion?
Just a second.
No, okay. Jim?
Yeah, thanks. Before I allow officers to come in, I'll say my wee tuppence for Graham. I better watch my language. It's not feasible, I don't think, to pause phase 2. I think we're in a very fortunate position within the Graham Town Centre. If you look at town centres throughout Scotland, everybody is feeling the pinch, both after the pandemic and also the cost of living crisis. I've got here, I was clearing out, that's when you hear that long, sometimes you clear out stuff, and I came across this today from 2016. This is the town centre charrette. This is how long we've been at this for. Graham, we've had our arguments over time. You were against it to begin with. We did realise that this was not for 2020 at the time, 2018 at the time. This year was looking forward to 2026. At this point in time, in 2016, it was a 10-year plan. I think we've got to recognise that we've been very fortunate with our colleagues, partners in Sustrans, the SPT, of getting us this money. I think we're extremely fortunate that hopefully we'll get phase 2 of the money. In all honesty, I think the streetscape's not finished until it's finished. I think until we actually see the full ambience, if I could call it that, of West Blackhall Street completely finished, not just for 2024, but as I said, this was done in 2016 to look at 2026. I think we've got to look forward past what we're seeing now and look forward to the future of West Blackhall Street. Shops have been closing down on West Blackhall Street. Shops have been opening up in West Blackhall Street. Just to blame the work, it's a bit of a stretch. If you look at the start of West Blackhall Street, you know, we've had many shops shutting down there and changing hands over. All we can do as a council through our partners is to try and make sure that West Blackhall Street is fit for the future. And I think phase 2 will do that as well, convener. I think if we're lucky enough through our partners, Sustrans, to get the money, I think we should grab it with open hands and look forward to the future of West Blackhall Street. And we recognise the pain that retailers are going through at the moment. But I think if we pause this now, we'll never start it again. And West Blackhall Street, people will say, that's a job half done.
Yeah, I'll come in. Just to confirm that the committee approval obtained in August last year was on the basis of a continuous project where the second phase would follow immediately from the first one. And we'll delegate authority to award the contracts on that basis, so to be within the overall funding envelope. Setting aside the credibility and reputational damages of not progressing with the original approval, and recognising the significant work by officers to progress the project to the current stage of delivery, if we were to consider a pause, then there's a number of risks associated with that. Affordability would be impacted if we're moving away from a continuous approach. There's costs associated with contractor demobilisation and remobilisation. A future phase and a delay in phase 2 would also introduce inflation impact and the mix, and you may impact overall affordability. If the phase is not concurrent, then it involves leaving the temporary reinstatement works that we've currently got in place. And the other subject are many of the complaints that we've got at the moment, and they would be unaddressed with a potential additional cost to revisit that as a permanent reinstatement should phase 2 works not ultimately be taken forward. Not a main concern, but a secondary one is that there'll be a delay to marketing the former Crescent Street depot site, because we're currently using that as a store for cobbles for phase 2. And there's also a risk that we fulfil the grant conditions, so either the phase 1 or, as we hope to have the phase 2, we have verbal confirmation from systems, but not in writing at the moment that we are going to get that money. There's a risk that if we're not taking forward phase 2, then our funding partners may ask for all or part of that money back, even on phase 1. Again, it's unclear how we assess any impact on local businesses. As mentioned already, how that carried out. There's a lack of baseline information to understand the cause and effect. It's not just the works; it is the impact of cost of living crisis as well. So that's a kind of summary from an officer perspective.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Convener. I don't think I would be supportive of halting phase 2. I think if we've planned for a continuous piece of work, then that's the basis on which we should proceed. However, neither am I okay with things with the project being as they are. I think there are issues, and I think a lot of us have had comments from the general public, from retailers, from people who are living and walking on the street at the minute, that the work so far isn't necessarily the way we would like it to be. So I would just like the work to continue, both phases, to do everything that we plan to do to the highest possible standard, to the highest possible spec, and to be utterly vigilant of that. Because I think that is at the core of a lot of the disgruntlement that I'm certainly hearing on the ground, and there is disgruntlement on the ground. So no, I wouldn't be okay with it being paused, but neither am I okay with it proceeding entirely as things are.
The see on the spec was kind of raised. Can you explain, the kind of handover, if you like, whenever the job's finished, it has to be finished to a standard that suits the council or else?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment it's been progressed on a rolling handover basis, but that doesn't mean that all the defects or the snags have been affected or have been addressed, because that can't happen as quickly as we'd like it to do, because we're obviously trying to minimise disruption to the businesses as well. So you have to get the vast majority of the work completed to the best standard possible, and then you sweep up everything towards the end of the contract and then revisit all of that. So that's what's happening. And there's also the temporary tying the cobbles, and people are picking up on that, and they notice that, and it has to be temporary at the moment because we are following on with the phase 2. So there's a number of reasons for why we're getting that level of complaints, and they are noticing things that do need to be rectified, but they will be in accordance with the contract, and we have professional staff administering the contract day to day, and they will ensure that the contractors held to those standards.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be in favour of delay for all reasons articulated by the officers. But I do share the concerns there are, and I think there are communication issues. I think it's about people hearing we've completed that section and then thinking, no, you've not. And no, you haven't. What you've done is you've reopened the road.
Yeah.
You've not completed the works. So I think there's communications issues. I think we need to better manage those communication issues. And I do think there's a job of work clearly for moving on to a second phase to try and learn the lessons from the first phase and how we work with businesses, etc. And I would suggest getting the 4 ward councillors together with the relevant officers. And you have obviously the Environment Regeneration Forum to have those dialogues. But I just think there's a job of work to improve that dialogue, trying to minimise disruption as best we can, and to better communicate. And hopefully, if we get the fund for phase 2, people are satisfied and the overall job's complete. But there are no doubt there are issues around communication. There is disruption, and people are not quite understanding what's happening on the ground. I think they need to better understand what's happening.
Thanks, Stephen. Chris?
Yes, I think it's a job that's happened. I was wondering whether or not Councillor Brooks should be saying to stop phase 1 at the moment, but no, you continue in for phase 1. My concern would be if we did stop. I think phase 1 is probably the most disruptive when it comes to the shops, because we are working exactly beside the pavements. I would hope that there is a plan for phase 2 that allows a lot more ease of access to the shops and effectively frees the carriageway up for works to be undertaken. And we know in this committee for that loss of parking on the street. I know it's been a wee while, but we have implemented additional parking arrangements in Jamaica Street and in Dillon Street. So that there is actually, there's been a little bit of delay getting the project. So the link between this project and those differential parking arrangements has been lost a little bit. But that was always part of the project. Was we knew that we were going to lose car parking in West Hall Street, and we have these additional options. But hopefully, as Councillor Gibbs says, there's lessons learned in that, and if we get it, we look at how we can do it in phase 2. We want to improve the access to the shops. We've got pavements that will be there. There'll be a continuous line of pavements. So hopefully that will solve a lot of those problems with access to the shops. And we have the additional parking off very close to West Hall Street. So it's about encouraging people back into the street even whilst the works are going on. As we finish the second phase, which will make a big difference. If we stopped it now, it's a job half finished. But really, don't want to stray into things here. It's not like it's unfinished. But the ability we give to us encouraging people into Inverclyde long term would be a big negative impact to us to sell that as an area for retail and for people to use if we don't continue and finish the works. We're there. The hardest bit is probably phase 1. Phase 2, we should hopefully be able to get on and move the job on a lot better.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Okay, Graham.
Yeah, I'll hold my motion. As I said, I'm just interested if we don't get the money for phase 2, what's going to happen?
John.
Thank you, Convener. If we just move on to section 3.1 for the Nature Restoration Fund. And while I welcome the work that has been undertaken at the Falls Reservoir, the local nature reserve, I do notice that there is one path that runs along the northwest side of the upper reservoir. A couple of weeks ago, I did have a walk along the path hadn't been completed as such. But one thing I did notice is that it's fairly close to the water's edge, and that there does not appear to be any life-saving stations in that area. Could the officers consider the installation of life-saving installation at that location where it is close by the reservoir itself?
Yeah, it's a reasonable request if there's a new path that's been introduced and towards the, and then we'll have a lot of apparatus around the reservoir, so yeah, we can review that.
Actually, that's lovely, thank you.
Okay, so go back to Graham's motion. I've got a motion, but there's some other comments in the paper that we'd be able to have the motion and then still address some of the other comments from the paper. No, if you want to address the comments first, then we'll motion. Thank you.
Just turning to 3.36 on page 16, second walk of the streets. I welcome the progress that's been made to the final drawings submitted by external consultant on a large variety of projects. But I'm conscious of the fact that as an elected member and probably a lot of elected members, we've not seen the site of these. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to have a members briefing with respect to these projects, which I think will make a big difference to, and will seem to make a big difference to Inverclyde. It's important that we see a site of these as well. And also with respect to the Inverclyde traffic study, notice that the high-level study is completed in August 2024. would we expect a report back to this committee on the results of this study, or would it be more appropriate for maybe having a members briefing again, just to identify the high level issues that has identified within the traffic study? And just on Dunroad Road, I'm quite Councillor McCabe has raised the issue about how long it's taking to do the road. I think with the road being closed, it's obviously putting a greater pressure on other roads in that area, and I know there's been a bit of publicity with respect online with respect to condition of the other road on the other side. I'm just wondering if officers have got any comment on that, whether or not that requires to have substantial works or more significant works done to it.
Yeah, to you, Convener. I'll take it first and then Stephen maybe add in if I miss anything. So in terms of the cycling walk and safer streets, yeah, I think we've already committed to providing that information to members when it's available, and that commitment remains. I'll take advice from the director whether or not an all members briefing may be a more appropriate method of doing that. It may well be, and we'll come back to you on that. And again, it's similar with the improvised traffic study. I think we need to wait and see what that comes back with before we decide what the appropriate way of feeding that back is, whether it's a briefing or a paper or both. So we'll review that when we have that content, if that's okay.
That's fine.
And in terms of the road on the other side, and the access to the Cornwallis Visitor Centre past the mark, there is an area of road where we have had a subsidence issue, and it's linked to surface water. So we've currently got works ongoing to provide a temporary diversion route around that particular issue, and we're looking at what the permanent rectification will be for that. So that's happening at the moment, and it should be in place within the next week or two. So it is passable just now, but it will be more passable when this temporary bypass is in, and we will review what the permanent rectification is, but there will be a permanent rectification of that. So yeah, it is actively being dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Paul, I'm in the minutes, Stuart. Okay, Paul.
Thanks, Stuart. I've got a quick comment and a question to different points. Just quite welcome the completion of the play areas that Queen on Wednesday. I've had a bit of feedback in the last 20 years before that the work was done at the Wednesday play park, so I've had a lot of positive feedback from my constituents about the quality of the work and the new equipment there. I just want to pass on my thanks to officers for that on behalf of my constituents. My question of 3.39 is regarding the report back from the external report on the 29th anniversary of December Wednesday. I'm just wondering whether officers could, or not whether we might be able to have this back at committee in August after return from recess. There has been a considerable period we've been waiting on an outcome to report back on this.
Yeah, so you can be thanks, Stephen. If you want to confirm that, I think that is the intention, is to bring back that report on the 29th in Gulch Street when it's the first report after the summer recess. Stephen, you just confirm that, do you understand?
That's fine, Eddie. Thanks, Convener. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Thanks.
Okay. Stuart, you want to come in there?
You can just to confirm that we're happy to have an all-member briefing on CWSS and the traffic study.
Okay. Okay. Back to the motion.
Sorry, again, I do apologise. Is item 3.5 on Great Town Centre levelling up? It's just obviously it's a substantial project, and I know that the officers are working behind the scenes on this. But I'm just wondering when we expect another report to this committee on this, because I'm just thinking back to last time it was programmed. I think I've got my head October of starting to see things moving. So I just would wonder whether we would see a report at the next committee, which would be August, before that work's planned to start.
Neil, you want to? Jennifer, you want to come in?
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, we are looking to bring a report back, aiming for the first committee after the summer recess, with the detail on the cost and the programme.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I'll be very, very quick. I can't let the paper go without commenting on the Custom House clock and the work down at the Custom House. The clock itself is looking splendid. focus behind. It's really good. It's when you've got the Waverley just moored beside it, you've got the clock there, and it's the best way to some look forward to seeing the restoration of the cobbles down there as well. So I know the work is still ongoing, but the work so far has been very good down there. And it's good to see, using the time, it's good to see the yard men back at the statue of that, and the wee scene back as well, where the kids park it. So well done to folk who's been involved.
You should be concerned that you're clearing your desk and you're talking about clocks and time and
We're all very focused.
reflecting on the past. There's something that we don't know.
What do we need that clock?
Stephen?
That was all I was going to say.
You beat me to it.
Right, okay. Go back to the motion from Graham. I'll move the recommendation.
So through you, convener, so Councillor Brooks, your motion, can you take your motion to accept the recommendations subject to, So, subject to, so therefore to agree the recommendations subject to a pause on phase 2 of the Western Hall Street project for officers to bring back a report on the impact of phase 1. Councillor McCormick, the amendment is just to be written.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so members, so the Councillor Brooks' motion that the phase 2 be paused for a moment, and Councillor McCormick's amendment is to agree the recommendations. If I can ask you all to indicate if you are for the Councillor Brooks' motion or Councillor McCormick's amendment. Councillor Brooks' motion. Councillor Cassidy. Amendment. Councillor Fogarty.
Amendment.
Councillor Crowder.
Amendment.
Councillor Curley.
Amendment.
Councillor Jackson.
Amendment.
Councillor McCabe.
Amendment.
Councillor McCormick.
Amendment.
Councillor Nelson. Councillor Quinn.
Amendment.
And Councillor Robertson.
Amendment.
That is 2 for the motion and 9 for the amendments to the amendments.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, item number 4 is the Environment Regeneration Committee Development Improvement Plan for 23 to 26. Annual refresh and performance summary for 23-24. Neil, would you like to take this?
So the report was a standard update on committee development improvement plan, which follows the standard format for reporting. The plan outlines actions delivered through the last year. The slightly showed the performance was quite up through key metrics and an overall risk log. The CDIP performs service plans for each service area and ensures that actions delivered only to do with new actions, those that are still to move things forward on that basis. I won't highlight any of the actions, but I'll set out in the report in detail and take questions.
Okay, Neil, thank you very much. Any questions from Stephen?
Yeah, there's obviously good progress been made in a number of areas, but I think the report obviously recognises there's slippage, quite a few areas. There's obviously we've got slippage in APIs as well. I think Eddie's obviously alluded earlier in the meeting to resource issues, where there's been vacancies, etc. But I suppose my question and challenge to officers within the directorate are confident that they've now got the resources to take this plan forward and they're supposed to deliver on the particular actions and deliver on the KPIs.
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah, through yeah, thank you. Yes, all the actions are related to content within the report, so that includes items that have slipped and items that have got red statuses against them in KPIs. So there is active actions related to those, and those related to service plans are certainly make those to ensure that the processes and mechanisms for delivery are in place. So there's a confidence in that in respect to resource, particularly through the regeneration plan side, upside notably, and also in terms of the KPIs for planning. That's I can advise you that's what we're actively looking at in terms of the delegations and capacities increase. So yes, is the answer to that.
So did you want to come in there?
Through you, convener, Mr. McIlvanney covered the point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Convener. My question's about the action that's been carried forward in terms of refreshing and renewing the economic strategy. And I'm just really wondering what the process will be for that, because I personally think it would be useful if there was a means of closing the loop on what the impact has been on the current strategy as a part of the process of leading us into having a meaningful role in shaping the next strategy, and taking what we've got from the current strategy as learning for the new one. Just that's in my ideal world, that's how things would work. So I just thought I'd better put it out there.
Thank you. You again. Thank question, Councillor. So I think that the normal part of any process to develop a strategy would be to review performance and successes building the previous strategies. So I think that would be part of the inbuilt methodology process of building a strategy. We're looking to move that forward ASAP. It was discussed at the task force this morning in terms of working business resilience as well. And I think that it's likely to be a feature of that. Community wealth building will come into that as well, because that's started another action, one of the service plans. So I think those things will come together. And again, as typical with the development of strategies, there will be engagement around that as well. So I think engagement will be critical to making sure that there's
Thank you very much. Big page 44 is obviously another KPIs. The KPI constituents have got my attention to capital to potholes, obviously a 20% drop on target. I just wonder if there's could advise us what the plan is to hit target.
Stephen, do you want to comment on the potholes?
Thank you, convener. I think one of the issues we do have is we did hit a saving, reduced our potholing teams from 3 to 2, and it is showing a slight impact on that. Roads as a whole, but I'll need to review how we're dealing with the Cat 2 potholes and try and come up with a plan structured around that to bring our count back up again in line with where we should be. But we are struggling a wee bit with some of our resources at the moment as well, just to confirm that.
Thanks. It would just be helpful for members to understand when the voice of the opportunity with the change of resources, and will we ever meet that 90% target, or we have to change that? Because constituents, I'm not sure, other people hear constituents, I'm hearing lots about this for all three polls, but constituents are really concerned about the potholes. And for our defences, we're doing what we can, we're hitting target, but obviously for the paper produced, we're 20% short of our own target. I just wonder how will members get sight of what the officers advise.
Was that reduction in service through the budget?
Yeah, I mean, there was a reduction in service taken a number of years back, and there's a further reduction in service, and although there's a smoothing reserve been put in place to stay that impact over the next 3 years, it is something we have to look at as part of there was a management strategy review, and that's one of the reports that didn't come to this committee, but it will come to the next one, and it has to look at the 5 to 10 year, and certainly the 5 year position and how we address the potholes, bearing in mind that those savings have been taken.
Nice to be.
Yeah, I think that's a fair challenge back, and the reality is we've cut in funding for services, we're going to see an impact. But the target we've been asked to approve today is 90%. So is that target too ambitious?
Yeah. Likely yes is the answer. We need to review it.
Okay. Anyone else? No. Chris?
Yeah, I think it's an important point, because we do look at the budget implications, but I think that's what is a good example where we are seeing that impact, and I'd be interested to see if we do think we should be at 90%, let's maybe we need to call it accordingly. But moving on to something else, the reputational risk on page 48 with respect to the planning committee, and it's obviously said it's amber, which is a high risk score with respect to the contingency plans. with respect to the planning board and advice given to the planning board and the local review body. I've been on the planning board for a couple of years, so I'm just wondering, so the review date is October 24, and it talks about appropriate training, but is that directed towards elected members or will that be directed towards officers and or both?
Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for the question. The national planning performance is measured on a national basis, and it's typically done past by planning performance frameworks. There's a new issue in place supported by the Improvement Service to look at national plan improvement framework plans, and it's been piloted this year. So I think that will create a mechanism to capture training opportunities, but in respect of dealing with this, the mitigation of this risk, it would be both in risk requirements for members to sit on the planning board to be trained and likewise for officers. So I think it includes both.
Okay. And once we have this training, do you think that will be reviewed? Because obviously I think it's quite a high risk score, and as an elected member on the planning board, I'd like to hope that that's not, we're not deemed to be at a high risk. So I would just, we've got an idea, but if you have this appropriate training, where we think that risk would go down.
Thank you, Catherine. So we'll be part of this year pilot national planning improvement frameworks. In the Scottish Government's doing that in three cohorts. We're in cohort 2, we start in August, so and before that starts, there'll be some training around that. So I think that'll be big influence to more intelligence around timescales for these types of actions. So we can keep that in an update, but I think it's the mechanisms are easily achieved in terms of any training requirements. So,
okay, so thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point to make, and it's an amber that I must go in there. But I mean, planning is a fascinating and complex area, and I'm delighted that I'm the planning board and the local review body. And it is really complex, and I mean, you can't see the wood for the trees when you get the reports, etc. So I think having regular training is useful, and I suppose regular informal opportunity to discuss planning issues with officers as well to understand, because that is a very, very complex area.
Okay. Can we agree the recommendations? Item number 5 is the supplementary planning guidance for drop 10 wets. Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect time.
So the paper on short-term lets is seeking approval for the appendix, which is a supplementary guidance note on the short-term lets. And so that was generated from applications that were considered the March and April planning boards. When it was an undertaking given to bring policy forward, so that is fulfillment of that application given it was planning boards. In terms of some of the detail of the policy that's set out before you today, it reaffirms the primary decision-making basis for plan applications as being National Planning Framework and Local Development Plan. They contain the policies, and that is unchanged in that respect. It's just re-emphasising their importance in the privacy decision-making. What it's doing, however, is setting out just links between the separation between licensing processes and planning procedures, because there are different matters for different considerations and different legislation. So it's just reaffirming that as well. And likewise, the licensing guidance does the same thing. And in terms of substantive guidance on short-term lets, the paper also gives some guidance on what are primarily amenity considerations in terms of where short-term lets are considered, and gives guidance that they should be supported in areas where they're best suited. So, for example, town centre locations, where they need to support regulation and where they don't compromise amenity by creating more concentrations or compromising industrial areas or residential institutions. So it's quite a short paper, but it's in respect to the last discussion in the last paper in the favour of providing further guidance. Should the paper be approved, it would be relevant to plan applications as of the time of the decision. So the standard applications from the April planning board will be able to come forward available planning board beyond that. Have to take any questions and cut out.
Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, thanks, convener. I welcome this paper. It's been something that I was asking for at the planning board, because I think what happened was we seem to get more and more applications, and I think members we're virtually in a quandary of whether we're there to just rubber stamp the applications or to go in depth, and maybe too in depth to the applications as well. And I know I spoke with Councillor Armstrong about this as well. I think this guidelines will be a good addition to elected members, especially when elected members look at the appendix, and 5.1 in the appendix is probably key to what elected members are looking for. And I know in the past applications, it probably covers what's happening at 5.1. It will give members that sense of that's the guideline, that's what's there. And other than that, really, you should be looking for an example at 5.1 if you're going to move against something. So I think the idea would be most would be passed unless some really stands out under 5.1. That's my take on it. And when I'm going up at planning now with these guidelines in place, I think it gives me a better understanding of when we can object to something, why we can object to it, and those will probably be a lot less than there have been in the past for this. So thanks for the guidelines, it's much appreciated.
Yeah, I think we need to be careful, obviously, because there are like planning applications that were debated at the planning board, and I didn't necessarily agree with Councillor Properties request to delay consideration. I mean, in terms of this guidance, probably better having this guidance than not having this guidance. But I don't think personally will fundamentally change the assessment of the application. And I do think we and again, I'm avoiding talking about any individual plan application. I do think, and I think comes through in this, we do need to recognise that the planning side, planning process, as plan guides, national policy, etc., is designed to encourage development. It's in favour of development, right? And you have to have very good reasons to oppose development. There may well be, on the basis of this guidance and existing policy, good reasons why you can oppose individual short-term lets, etc. But we need to be clear that actually the balance is in favour of encouraging development to support the economy, etc. But yeah, I mean, it's a useful addition to the suite, but I don't think it would have changed my view on the planning application when you consider it, and would change my view when we reconsider them.
Not for the first time, Jim, still disagree. Hannes?
In a polite respect.
Hannes?
With this here, reading what it's saying in 3.1, it says in most cases to utilise a property as a short-term let, it will require planning permission for a change of use. And where I have concerns here is that I know that people who have had short-term lets running for years are now being asked to apply for planning permission. And that is not a change of use because it has had that use. And there has been a case through in Edinburgh that Lord Baird sat on in December last year, where he ruled that if you have had a short-term let as a short-term let before the legislation came into place, then you don't need to apply for planning permission. But the planners in Inverclyde Council are still asking people to apply for planning permission, and I know that from constituents who have contacted me. I think that we really need to sort this one out, and I can see advantages both in supporting local businesses that have been running for years, that they don't need to apply, and conserving current short-term lets in support of tourism in Inverclyde, and freeing up planners' time, and also freeing up councillors' time, because this is exactly what you're saying, Councillor Property. There's this huge amount coming in front of planners that are dealing with stuff in retrospect, when really they shouldn't be doing that. So I would ask that further paper comes back to us, looking at this judicial review from Lord Baird and how that impacts Inverclyde and the planning in Inverclyde regarding short-term lets.
Neil, right,
Yeah, very convener. You talk about moving into sort of legal view on this as well, but from my perspective, what the paper is about when planning applications are submitted, the guidance for assessing those applications. I understand that. I appreciate you picking up the issue of when consent is required. There was a change in regime imposed by the Scottish Government that sort of sparked the increased need for planning applications. This has been explored with the team and legal in terms of the requirement plan applications. It is a set out here, which is that in almost all cases there are planning applications will be required for change of use, and it's only where it would be so minor, maybe a week of a year when someone's away on holiday, that it doesn't need consent. But in other instances, then that is the consistent application of the interpretation of the law from the council perspective.
So, what about Lord Mayor's doing?
So to you, Keira, it's to my colleagues who've been advising Neil on this matter, but I know that I'm discussions within the legal service. So in fact, Neil's view is informed by the House of Legal.
Stuart, anything after that?
Convener, the difficulty with this is that the policy has been developed over a number of years, and I would draw Councillor's attention to paragraph 4.1 in the documentation, where it does identify that Circular 1/2023 is clear in terms of what is a change of use, where a dwelling house moving into a short-term let is a change of use. Now, Councillor Nelson's comment about established uses, clearly there is guidance in respect of how long something has been being carried out, but because it's been a short-term let for a number of years, doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't require the change of use. So the position that we as officers have taken, as Neil said earlier, it's a consistent approach across the board. To touch back on the risk of the planning board, this is clearly it's an interpretation of legislation, and by adopting the position that we have, we are minimising any potential risks to Inverclyde Council. But it is guidance which has been produced by Scottish Government, and in this case, we are the blunt instrument that is applying that legislation.
That's what point.
Well, I would say you're not reducing the risk, you're actually increasing the legal risk, because somebody could quite easily take council to court over this one. So that there is a legal risk.
I
don't see any harm in having a report on the implications of that judgment. Obviously, officers have taken a particular view, but I genuinely don't see. I mean, we've had quite a lot of discussion in the general purposes report around this particular issue from a licences perspective. We've had discussions at the planning board as well. We've got the report here. It clearly is a contentious area, and obviously Edinburgh has been in the sort of forefront of this. So I don't think there's any harm in getting a report looking at that judgment and the implications of it.
Yeah, I've got 2 points. First, I'm going to contribute to similar to what Councillor gave. So we've had a constant approach, I get that, but in light of this judgment, is our approach wrong? So we're constantly approaching it, but we're doing it wrong. But if the report comes back, then that's what the legal people take to have that opinion. But actually, in fairness to the paper on appendix, it's 5.1, which I will face something to refer to, and I'm just very nervous that in 5.1.4, we've got this 10%, which is clearly picked out in the air, unless Mr. can tell me why you've got 10%, less than 10% of dwelling houses. And I can imagine the elected members say, listen, now the 11% of dwelling in that street. So, for on what grounds are we going to? So we're going to reject on the ground it's the 11% and not under 10, and then we've got potential challenges because 10% is nowhere in the law. So I just wonder why we've got 10%, and it does seem an awful small figure for some of our major streets.
Yeah.
Just to provide some context to that. So the items in 5.1 are just intended to, as Councillor McCabe indicated, provide further clarification on what the amenity considerations are in terms of applications. So it's giving guidance. It's not changing what the development plan interpretation should have been. It's additional, and so that should provide some further clarity. In terms of the 10 or 20%, that's typically understood in a planning context as beyond that threshold, you're not ancillary to, or you're not sort of incidental to. So beyond that, you kind of breaching that threshold of changing use in a general sense. So those are provided to give clarity on the sort of level of amenity that would be required to reach. So, but it's a threshold that is set. So where you're right.
So just so that it would be a change, if the gains of the a change, I get that, but if it wasn't change, if you look at Blackpool Beach, it's lots of short-term money, so it's positive thing for Blackpool, if you have positive thing for Ashby and Riverside. So although it's a 10%, it's a change, but it doesn't have to be a negative change. It could be a positive change. That's what the plan book is to say.
Yeah, so it's just setting out thresholds that beyond that it's likely to be having a more concentrated impact on the amenity and character of the area, therefore it's more likely to be unacceptable. Each case would be considered and obviously merits. What I would say is that this reference in the guidance to 4.4 to short-term let control areas, those are applied for in such an over-concentration that you need to manage short-term lets. We're nowhere near that level. I mean, I think the level of approvals that if I recollect from the April Planning Board, the level of approvals plan applications for short-term lets was 46 out of that development stock of 40,000. So we're absolutely at a sort of negligible amount. So I think it's unlikely that we'll often find ourselves considering each of those ranges, but they're designed to provide some sort of control mechanism, and they are for some, there's rationale behind it.
Yeah, it's asking another question. You had mentioned about short-term lets and kind of push towards town centres and things like that. There are, I know when I go on holiday, I don't want to go and stay in a town centre. You're looking for some rural location or something like that. So are you saying that if applications are made in rural locations in Everglades that they could be refused through this?
No, to be clear, no, that's not the case. What that's reflecting is National Plan Framework 4 and Development Plan Guidance, which indicates that short-term lets are usually well located areas, well connected to transport and amenities, and so town centres tend to be that. Generally, most places in urban areas can be that. And again, back to the sort of point of the presumption in favour of development, which is typically how the system operates. I think what the criteria here are trying to do is provide examples of where it wouldn't be acceptable. So if it was right in the middle of an industrial area, that probably wouldn't be acceptable. If it was disturbing the amenity of a residential institution, that might not be acceptable. It's not saying that it's unacceptable in rural areas. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any recommendations? Yeah. Yes. Okay, item number 6 is corporate asset management strategy for 24 to 28. Evan.
Yeah, thanks again. The report presents a reflect corporate asset management strategy for 2024-2028, which is included in Appendix 1. As highlighted within the report, we're at the end of a period of significant investment across the majority of the different asset strands, and that's resulted in a huge improvement of those assets over a period of 15 years. And over the life of the proposed strategy, the main activity for in reviewing the operational asset base, many opportunities for reducing that, plus there will need to develop new plans for each of the asset areas that identify the funding and resource requirements over a long term, including assessing some of the most significant challenges, such as those associated with local and national net zero targets. And the recommendations include approval to progress the 5-yearly external condition surveys of all property assets and remit to policy and focus for funding for that from capital programme contingency. That's the committee approved recommendations and happy to answer any questions.
That's it. What's your name? John Wayne, committee. Yeah, probably Stephen.
I was just going to, apart from, I suppose, the challenge of funding, where would you say this, I suppose, the greatest needs are sort of in the sort of short, medium term?
I think so you can be the greatest needs are generally in the property asset estate. Whilst we've made all these significant investments, we are at a point now where we are trying to keep them all in a satisfactory condition, and that's the limited life cycle and revenue funding. So the pressure is going to come in terms of keeping those assets, and we make the SPI returns every year on asset condition suitability and report factory returns and school estate. Although we're keeping steady in those, but there is I can say on the trend is really pushing down towards going towards a C in some instances, so that will highlight where the investment will be needed. And then we've got a couple of schools that are in the earlier refurbishment programme where they are getting close to that level, and the next round of external surveys will highlight that, and will highlight where we need to focus some of that early intervention. All the different strands have got different needs and requirements. We will bring back the roads asset management strategy, which is a 5-year plan for the next 5 years. We've got the fleet. The main pressure on the fleet will be the answers for the bigger vehicles in terms of moving away from petrol and diesel, and that isn't there yet. So there's a few specific challenges in some of the areas, but mainly it's going to be around the property estate and how we keep that in as best conditions we can, because we basically can't afford to keep all the assets we've bought at the moment. We are going to have to look at rationalisation, review, and that includes the leisure estate as well. So that's where the main pressure will come from.
But that's useful to know that Councillor Cockburn will recall he was at Strathclyde Regional Council, and when this council came into existence from the mid-1990s, not just at regional level, but I suppose at district level as well, inherited an asset base which was in a rather challenging condition. And I think there's been fantastic work done over the last 20, 30 years in terms of improving our asset base. It's required some very difficult decisions around schools, for example, nationalisation, and it's been against the backdrop of, again, a lot of austerity, etc. But there's no doubt we are facing a further period of ongoing austerity, and it will be a huge challenge. And we can see that not just within the council, but we can see that locally in terms of the need to invest in our hospitals, the need to invest in our health centres, the need to replace our prison, the need to replace or invest in our college, etc., the need for a new police station. Process is starting off now in terms of reviewing our fire services, where those pressures are there all across the public sector, and we clearly are not immune from that. And it's going to be incredibly challenging to try and maintain a good quality asset base. And the difficulty is if you start cutting back on maintenance investment, you end up back to the sector where we come in with a new council in 1996.
Okay, can we agree with recommendations? Yeah. Okay, item number 7, the roads asset management strategy has been pulled. So we're on to item number 8, which is the Glasgow to Region Electric Vehicle Charging Infrastructure Collaboration. Edith.
Thanks, Emila. The report provides the committee an update on the work undertaken on the approach to electric vehicle charging, infrastructure expansion, and development of a collaborative approach across the 8 authorities within the Glasgow City region. The report includes the summary of key activities of the senior officers group fed into the preparation of this report. There's good detail on the objectives and benefits of the proposed collaboration, including the scope, timeline, and governance and support arrangements for the proposed procurement. Strategy document prepared through consultants Mark McDonald's now at the council's website, and a link to that was provided. It should be noted that the proposed procurement will involve a more detailed review of potential charge road locations, including in that customer strategy. That's it from me. Approve the recommendations. We can see questions.
Thanks, Edith. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I welcome the report. I would do this up. I suppose that we did last week. This approach. I don't think we can do this on our own anyway. I think a collaborative approach is absolutely necessary. I think the charging infrastructure across the country and needed in the climate is very good. There's no doubt about that. infrastructure's poor, and if we are going to move in the direction of obviously phasing out petrol and diesel vehicles, it's got to be a fundamental change in that, and it'll be interesting to see how this process works out and see what the market interest in particular and it is. So I'll be interested to see that. But one point I was going to raise, the question was asked, I was out speaking to good people who wrote the other day, and one woman did raise with me concerns that around the level of charges that we raise for our own charges, and she was claiming that we charge more than other local authorities. It would be useful maybe to get a report back at some point, just in terms of how we compare to other local authorities and to I suppose private providers as well in terms of charging. Because there's no doubt that, and I suppose I declare an interest as an electric vehicle driving as we're coming home. The fact of that as well, there's no doubt that if people are only charging their vehicles from public or private chargers, there is a cost effectiveness issue. If you can charge overnight, be an overnight charger, it's a different ballgame entirely. So there is an issue around price, and I think it would be useful for us to at least look at our charges and see how we compare. Now, I think our policy is we're not seeking to make money from this, but we're seeking to cover our costs, and I think it's important that we those that we demonstrate that I'm not fleecing the public, what is something that cost, and it would be useful to see that information in the future report.
Yeah, through you, Convener, as part of this group's work, we do share information on everyone's charge rates, and we are at the higher end of all those, but there's not a lot of difference between the 8 authorities in terms of the rates. So I mean, we can absolutely bring something back on that. I know that there was a meeting as recent as this afternoon with this group, and some of them are looking to review their charge rates, not necessarily down the way, and that's something that they all do regularly. So I think it's another example. There was new charges placed in Norfolk recently, and they have put their rates very, very similar to the council's rates, basically. So they all look at what everyone else is doing around them, and we do try not to be marking the different from everybody else, but we can certainly bring a report back.
Thank you. As Councillor McKay alluded to, I'm also driving an electric vehicle. I don't think it's an interest or wants to leave in the room, but I suppose it is a connection. Boom. But looking at it, I think I'm a welcome this paper. I think to where we need to get to, we do need to be collective with respect to this. With respect to the sites that we identified, the 17 sites identified in the paper, yeah, they're all in town centres, etc., all things that can be located. I think we also have, I suppose this is where there's probably declaring a connection with respect to River Clyde Homes. This is looking at where other car parks are, where other facilities are within other partners within the area. A lot of those car parks, etc., are within our housing estates, which would provide the opportunity for people to charge overnight, and then would go lead to us more getting a greater base of charging facilities, and also that will have ongoing impacts on how cars are distributed within our estates. It might actually help with other things related to congestion, etc., because if people are parking their cars in car parks to get charges, they're not on the streets outside their houses. Just on this matter with respect to where we actually put the charging points, I'm conscious of the fact there's been a lot of development, and I think Mr. Montgomery alluded to that in Inverkip there's a private development there. We've had a lot of development of rapid chargers around the A8 recently, and certainly my concern is that these are taking an opportunity to grab a share of the market of people visiting Inverclyde or travelling through Inverclyde. We also have talked recently or earlier on in this meeting about the desire to improve our town centres, but part of that is to get people into our town centres. So my concern is, while this paper is good and about how we can do that, and that's just what we're planning to do with our facilities, I'm conscious of the fact is that there's private developers out there that are looking at how they can access development sites, and we might not necessarily have control about where they're being put. So we have a situation where there's lots of chargers, and if you go down, if you drive down the A8 at the moment, go to Greg's, the Starbucks, and Prime Rent, you see lots of what they call rapid chargers, which are tying people to those sites, and they're not coming into the town centre. So my concern is that we're actually driving we don't have that level of guidance and support from a planning perspective that will drive that development within our town centres, and that private development specifically. So I'm just wondering if officers comment about whether or not it would be appropriate to review that as part of ongoing changes in our planning guidance, so that we can actually take the opportunities that this change in how we actually travel could actually be utilised to actually drive footfall into our town centre.
So yes, so you'll be aware that lots of development plans for the early stages of review, and that's supplementary guidance which covers policy and charging points. So that's being reviewed at the moment, and that's absolutely an appropriate thing to take account of in terms of going forward. It aligns with government principles around town centre first, so that's absolutely fine. And we've also raised this issue with the consultants that are undertaking town centre action plans, just so they've got consideration for that in the programme work they're undertaking as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gabriel. Yeah, I think if we're going to provide fuel for cars, if that's what we choose to do with the electric vehicles, then to do collaborations, the Group of 8 is certainly better for the taxpayer. I look forward to a stop petrol station for me to fill my car if for public funds. But how agile will this group be? Because obviously the bottom is falling out, the electric car market. So the challenge is that we're putting big investment in here and the market then retracts. Are we putting taxpayer money good after bad? So that's my first question. Secondly, page 107, where it gives us the costs to be confirmed. So we're being asked to approve a paper here with no cost implication. Give us some clarity from officers and maybe from legal. Is that appropriate for us to do today?
Right, thanks, Ken. I thought you were thinking about in the bike, Ken.
Can we have this back on that? So I think that if the intention of the paper, and I think it's in there, it is in there, is that this will be a low or no cost solution that attracts in the private sector, who will put in the majority of the funding required, and the 8 partner authorities will access funding through Transport Scotland for the balance. So the capital investment will not be made by the council, will be made through external funding and the private sector partner, and there will be a running cost associated with running that contract, which will be fed back in through that concession contract to put a limited staff resource in place to basically administer in each individual authority area. So the intention is, it is at no cost in theory, subject to this procurement exercise progressing and getting that feedback from the market, but there were 33 expressions of interest from the pinholes, so there was a lot of private sector interest in it.
So as positive that it's not going to cost the taxpayers, how agile will this group be should the bottom fall out of the electric car market?
Well, I think this isn't the only collaboration that's ongoing at the moment across Scotland. There are other collaborations happening with different local authorities getting together to do similar procurements. So this is probably by far the largest one, I think, with the 8 authorities. I think as Councillor alluded, we couldn't do this on our own. To be as part of this wider, larger group and have got those resources is by far the best way that we can access that and move forward, because not happening those other resources, those other authorities.
Thank you.
I mean, the reality is we are trying to bring the private sector in, we're trying to pass the risk over the private sector, but the private sector will only come in and invest if they believe there will be a demand and then will make a profit. So they will assess, and we know there are challenges in the electric vehicle market at this point in time. So it is about saying we couldn't meet all the needs as an individual council, we can't even meet the needs as a collective. One of the issues that does concern me is the fact that the Scottish Government is winding down Charles Place Shop, which is the kind of arrangement where you get a wee card and you can go anywhere in Scotland where there's a Charles Place Scotland charge, and they're removing that administration arrangement, and it means that potentially the council might have to look at some sort of solution around that as well. So I think that's a retrograde step from the Scottish Government.
That's right, Mayor.
Yeah, I'll just pick up that point. I think Charge for Scotland has been a good thing for Scotland. It's been great when you can actually go to every charge in Scotland generally and actually use the card, especially when you go down south to visit a couple of friends down there, even on the motorways. You need to install an app every 20 miles almost if you're going to different authorities. So that shows an example of what we're doing. But I think the charge page is now moving to pay as you go. So that's the need to actually have that membership card is changing. I think that will simplify things just generally, because to be fair, if you've got across the border from Northumbria and you're trying to load down Charge Place Scotland card, it can be a bit difficult, whereas if you just pay with your debit card, it's a lot easier. Just on the issues about I know there has been short-term issues with respect to the electric cars, and I think it's more to do with glut as opposed to anything else. I think that the ecosystem, and I'm using that term correctly, that we're having to do this has not changed, and the papers that will be subsequent to this one demonstrate that, when we're talking about actually now having to plan for not 1.5% increase in temperature, but to mitigate up to 4 degrees temperature difference. Now the thought of that is absolutely horrendous for everybody. Well, I must admit, if 4 degrees on average going up, it's going to make a big difference to us, and we're talking about that in the space of 30 to 40 years. Now, that ecosystem, that with the climate that climate that we are making these changes has not changed. There might be local changes to do with how we do it, but the end result, we still have to get to where we need to get to, which is net zero.
Okay, can we read the recommendations? Yeah. Thank you. Item number 9 is local heat and energy efficiency strategy and delivery plan. Ed.
Thanks, Mayor. The report presents final local heat and energy efficiency strategy and delivery plan for approval. The January committee approved draft strategy and delivery plan, including submission to public consultation. That consultation ran from early March to early April, and we received a relatively small number of responses, which have been summarised in Appendix 1. The problem report highlights that the initial delivery plan will focus on the work and take forward through the Council Stability Action Plan, which has got limited capital funding support, and through continuing to maximise the use of other external funding sources, such as that connected with area-based schemes. I'd ask the committee approve the recommendations and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ed. Any questions? No? Agree?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Okay, item number 10 is the Energy and Climate Change Net Zero Action Plan Annual Progress Review. Scottish National Adaptation Plan consultation. Ed.
Thanks, Mayor. The report covers 2 items: the annual review of the Net Zero Action Plan, which is included in the detail. The Council responds through the officers of the Energy and Climate Change team to the recent Scottish Government consultation on the draft Scottish National Adaptation Plan, which is included as Appendix A. There is a lot of detail, particularly within Appendix A, and good progress being made across many areas of the plan, with some areas requiring more of a focus, which we'll review between now and the next reporting period. I'd ask the committee to look at the report and have further recommendations, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, comes in. David.
I mean, it's a very comprehensive report on the action plan, and it's actually good to see the different iterations of what has been done. So I suppose my general question at the end of the action plan would be, are officers satisfied with it? Progress has been made. But probably another question around obviously a lot of publicity recently in terms of the Scottish Government changing its targets for the interim progress to net zero, and what impact that has on our local strategy, if anything.
Yeah, through you, Convener. I think there are many areas of the plan which are easier to measure progress, and there's other areas of the plan that are more difficult to make a tangible assessment of how well you're doing. There's a lot of stuff in here that is more behavioural change and trying to get in touch with people to change how they're actually doing things. That's a more difficult thing to measure how you're actually doing those. More of the kind of qualitative and energy related ones are easier to manage, I suppose. And I think for the next declaration, I think we just need to get a little bit better at actually putting in some of the numbers. I mean, pick an example out, you know, Kenny said that over 10,000 trees were managed to be planted recently. That's a really positive move. You know, we've been well on the people restoration side of things. We are making good strides towards some of the building measures, but not quick enough. But again, I think that's the same as everything else. So I think generally, it's just figuring out a way how to measure this better and report on it better and more accurately. So it's easy. In terms of the Scottish Government's change away from its interim target, it doesn't really change how we approach this, particularly over a 5-year action plan that we've got. At the next review, that 5-year action plan might tell us something different. Bear in mind that the last year of this 5-year plan isn't funded, so that the funding we've got just now will only funded the first 4 years of that plan. And some of the actions or potential projects on the last year of that were around large interventions of things like primary schools. I don't think the technology is quite there yet to address some of the net zero adaptations required, and some of that is more difficult to do than provide facilities, and that's part of that strategic asset review and the corporate asset management strategy, and understanding how net zero figures in all that equation, reviewing each of the asset strands as well. So hopefully that answers your questions.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner. I think more pertinent in terms of trying to find ways of measuring the behaviour change and things, because I think it is really, really important. That's the kind of crux of it, is us doing things differently and making choices to do so. So I keep going on. Right, that was the kind of, this is a very peculiar question I'm about to ask. I'm fully aware of this. A very, very, very full report, but the appendix starts at page 14. I'm just wondering what's missing. What are we not getting told? Pages 1 to 13.
I'll be looking at it.
Have you? Is it just? It may just be me.
No, you're not missing anything. I think
Right,
it's a hangover from the previous report. It started at
Is that all?
page,
Is that what
you've got all the pages.
Right, that's fine. That's okay. Not cool. Because I thought, what can possibly be missing?
Chris.
Yes, thank you. I think just to add to some of the comments made by Councillor McCabe with respect to, I think it's a good report, a lot of information in here. But I suppose when looking at the ongoing complete, and maybe it's just the fact they're all great, I think getting that idea about are we on track, it's almost like the CDIPS kind of idea. Are we got a chance? Is it red? Is it amber? Is it green? How are we getting on? Do we need to review it? I think that would be very useful just from I'll look at a quick look to see how we're going. I think we were discussing previously about how we actually, there's two parts of this, and we are obviously reducing energy demand is important, very important to getting net zero. But I also make the point, I do feel that we are blessed in Inverclyde with a substantial amount of natural resource to try and to get the other way around. So we have the water power up here because of water power, and Clyde, we've got the wind opportunities, large scale wind farms, etc. So I'd like to see us as a council looking at those opportunities as well, even if it's a small sort of taster project to see what we can actually do. Yes, we do need to concentrate on the reduction aspect of it. That's primarily what we want to do. But as you've alluded to, Mr. Montgomery, the actual fact is that we have a lot of our assets are in use. So, to get that opportunity to go and make these changes will be very difficult. So if there's an opportunity to maybe do a low-hanging fruit somewhere else, it might be a good way to get to net zero.
Yeah, there's two you can be on. We are looking as far as possible at all areas, including heat networks and how they maybe roll down. That's part of the LP sort. Obviously, we are part of the mentoring programme. We see that a lot of authorities are approaching this, who are further ahead on that than us. I think that the big challenge is how you find the kind of heat source for some of the heat networks. So whilst we look at heat pumps from the Clyde, it's the electricity required to actually power them that is the barrier. So unless you link that with some sort of renewable generation, it makes it very difficult to put a business case together. So that exactly aligns with what you were saying there, looking at other opportunities to tie some of that in. But that again, we need private sector involvement as well, and that's what we are looking at how our councils are approaching.
Yeah, I think for looking at it from perspective, we've obviously got Green at Cut and what's been, but we still have a great opportunity there to actually utilise that resource. At the moment, it's an asset that we're using from a leisure perspective, but originally it still be used as originally designed. Well, one thing that piqued my interest on this was Orkney Council. When we looked at what they're doing in Orkney, they've actually got a strange situation. They've actually got too much energy, and they can't actually get it off the island because they've looked at how they can actually utilise what's there. And they've obviously Orkney's got a lot of wind, a lot of tidal, a lot of etc. And of course, got the sea around them, so they've got a problem a lot of areas would like to have. Yeah. But I think in Inverclyde we do have that opportunity to look at how we can develop. And maybe the council's got an opportunity to facilitate that with what we have as assets and what we want this land, and again the access to the Everglades. It's a gift for us. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Steve. Okay. You agree with the recommendation? Okay. Item number 11 is the play area spend update report from 24-25.
Right, short talk for you. The report sets out programme planning spend on play areas. The programme identified within paragraph 8.4 contains predominantly substantial refurbishment, replacement and surface works to existing play areas, but it also includes the addition of a new play area at Smithton area at a location to come through for the consultation. The list is determined in terms of a long list approach to manage play spaces, and then analysing condition and gap analysis and accessibility to determine the priorities that are in the table today. If approved, the office would get on with the works on this and move forward to consultation with the Smithton area. Just to clarify, it's set out 3.2 that the funding includes annual grant funding for play areas, but it also includes planning gain with respect to Sligo and Smithton play areas. Have to take questions on the report.
Thanks, Tom. Okay. Clear recommendation? Okay, thanks. Item number 12 is making some noting. It's the contract that was from the 1st of October 23 to the 1st of March 24. Eric?
Yeah, that's the routine second monthly contract for loss summary. The detail was sort of finished on to, and that's a pretty new report.
Okay. Clear recommendations? Thank you. Okay, item 13 is property asset management public report. Sorry. Speaking on.
Just to say that it's going to add a verbal addition to this report for an item on the meeting together. So that means that's what the special session. Which is discussed with the convener meeting. It needs to be in based on emergency.
Okay, thanks, Gabriel. The report has three items, two dealing with responses to open space consultations and one dealing with remarketing of an asset. And as this has been raised, I'd like to introduce a verbal update on the Remembering Together Labyrinths. Following the decision of the March Committee, Red Arts have now engaged with the Inverclyde and Greens Bay Community Council on a location adjacent to the Greens Bay Community Centre building within land in the council's ownership. And this makes consideration of support for this final location on the same basis of the previous approval through the March Committee. Back to the report proper, the first item deals with the remarketing of the former community hall at Leaden Roads in Greenock. As outlined in the report, this has previously been before the committee with the need to remarket due to the failure of progress misses from the previously identified preferred bidder. There's now a lot of interest in the building, as outlined in the report, and the authority has sought to remarket. Second item deals with the responses to the open space consultation on the proposed lease or part of the gap site at Brook Street in Coorg. 8 responses were received, included in Appendix 3. 5 responses supportive of the proposal, with 3 not supportive. The last item covers the open space consultation and the proposed sale of land at Watergate Drive in Home. 59 responses were received, included in Appendix 5. 5 of those were received late, with 57 of those responses not supportive, mostly citing the loss of green space. The committee is requested to approve the recommendations and include the verbal item will provide direction on further consideration of the Kendrick Street item within the private part of the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Eric. Steve?
Just in respect of the proposal for what yes drive, so my reading of this report is we're considering the representations in this report, but the decision will be taken in the private paper, is that right?
Yes.
But I do think in sort of terms of openness and transparency, particularly given the World Council, I'm sure that Cully will want to be open and transparent as well. I do think it's I should comment on the representations that we made. So there obviously have been extensive representations made, and as I said, yes, I elected most of them are objecting to the proposals. Now, I do believe that object in a sense to the planning application that was considered some time ago by the council. And I did oppose that planning application. I was defeated in a vote. I think Councillor Doherty moved the appropriate motion that defeated me. But I have accepted that that's the will of the council, and subsequently, obviously, the application was considered by the Scottish Government as well, and the permission was granted. So, while I respect the views of my constituents who are opposed to the principle of development of this site, to me, I have moved on from that. And for me, I accept that the planning permission in principle is granted. I suspect only planning permission in detail, irrespective of the decision we're going to make later on in the meeting, would probably be granted anyway. So for me, it's about what's in the best interest of the local community in terms of the prospective sale of this land. So I will be supporting the sale of the land later on in the meeting. Obviously, I'll have further comments to make later on in the meeting, but I think it's important that I be open and transparent with my constituents that I will be supporting the sale, although I oppose the original planning application, because I do believe that the sale would be in the interest of the local community.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Well, I suppose a better comment. Yes, as a ward councillor, we've had many representations about the adjacent development, which is why this has been considered for a number of years. I think all ward councillors did vote against the housing development, but it's come to pass that it's been agreed, and that we've got an approval in principle with respect to this housing development at West of Corridry or Kilmacombe Meadow. So, similar to Councillor Cabe, I've been looking at this and saying, well, what is the least worst option now, based on the fact that the housing development has planning. So my view is that the least worst option is that we have development similar to what's outlined in the planning approval in principle, which effectively is that there's two accesses to access the site, which minimises the disruption to the adjacent housing estates, especially Quarry Drive and Springwood Drive. So, for purpose of transparency, I am in favour of selling this land at this point in time.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Anyone else? Paul?
Yeah, I think on a slightly different topic, just on the remembering together verbal update report that Eddie just gave us, there. I think obviously the last committee decision supporting an amendment I put forward to our report, and I appreciate the committee's supporting that. I think back then I expressed, as I did previously, my frustration about the engagement process that was had around the Member Together project with our community councils. I don't think it's quite where it should have been. And hope coming off of this that there are some lessons learned about the importance of engaging with community councils, making sure that organisations take them aboard the journey when they're looking to do projects like this number 5. I'm a bit disappointed that I think it took about a month, as I understand, this community council for regards to actually engage with and follow the committee's decision. But I'm happy with the outcome that one of the labyrinths now will be cited, and Wednesday, and I'm supportive of that.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Paul? Lynn, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I've just got a quick question under the proposed lease of the gap site in Kempock Street. It's just obviously this has been debated, and I've seen it's been through the court process. So I'm just looking for some confirmation that because it's common good land, any rental income will go into the common good fund. Thanks.
Yeah, through you, Convener, I confirm that is the case, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? No? Can we agree with this? Yeah. Okay.
So can I just clarify, so through you, Convener, so you're again recommendations, but for 2.2, you're agreeing, yes, limb B of that, that it gets covered by the item. And for Eddie's additional verbal item, it's that the committee has granted consent and installation of the together landlords at the means relocations.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. The item 14, the health and private.